All right, let us jump right in. We hear a lot of intense debates about why some nations are incredibly wealthy, while others constantly struggle to provide basic necessities. And a lot of the time, these conversations focus on surface-level stuff, like hard work, pure luck, or local corruption. But in this explainer, we're going to objectively map out the hidden structural architecture that is actually driving global wealth inequality.
To get our heads around this, I want you to imagine a massive wealth reset. What if, just for a single day, every single person on Earth suddenly received the exact same amount of money? So for one brief, fleeting moment, perfect financial equality existed across the whole globe. What do you think would happen next? Would we just enter some utopian new era of global parity?
Well, economists have actually run the models on this exact scenario. And the astonishing reality is, within just 10 to 15 years, the exact same individuals and countries would bounce right back to the top. The people who were rich before the reset, they'd be rich again. This tells us something absolutely crucial. Global wealth is not just a matter of random chance or isolated individual effort. There is a deeply entrenched system working quietly in the background.
To put this into perspective, think about the sheer concentration of wealth we're dealing with. A tiny fraction of the globe, just 8 to 10 developed nations, places like the US, Germany, Japan, and the UK, they control a massive 12% of the globe's wealth all by themselves. Meanwhile, you have dozens and dozens of nations across Africa, South Asia, and Latin America sharing the rest, remaining perpetually stuck in a developing state. If human talent and hard work are distributed equally around the world, and they are, why are the economic results so wildly skewed? Well, to understand why, we have to peel back the very first layer of the system: history. We literally can't look at today's economy in a vacuum.
Part 1. The historical starting line.
We often talk about the global free market as an arena of equal competition. Actually, scratch that. It's a complete myth. Assuming equal competition today is like watching a race where one runner is starting literally inches from the ribbon while the other runner is starting 50 meters back. When we judge the economic performance of developing nations today, we're assuming they had the exact same starting conditions as wealthy nations, which just isn't true.
Historically, this staggering disadvantage built up over centuries. Back in the 18th and 19th centuries, European powers extracted immense resources from their colonies. We're talking gold, cotton, rubber, minerals, and human labor. This wasn't just typical trade, it was a massive, systematic transfer of wealth that was used to build the domestic industries of the colonizers. So by the time the 20th century rolled around and these colonies finally gained their independence, what were they left with? Basically, nothing. No banking infrastructure, no established domestic industries, and economies that were strictly designed just to export raw materials. And that historical foundation still dictates the shape of these economies today, creating the perfect storm for the second layer of the system.
Part 2. Modern capital flight.
So, capital flight. This is the active, ongoing transfer of wealth out of developing nations happening right now, today. Think of it as a continuous movement of money, assets, and human talent flowing straight from poorer countries into richer ones. It is literally a one-way valve actively draining the developing world.
According to economic models, there are 3 very specific systemic steps that facilitate this massive daily movement of wealth. Let's break them down. First up is multinational profit shifting. You have these massive global companies going into developing countries, utilizing their local infrastructure and extracting their resources and labor. But, and here's the catch, when it comes time to record the profits from all that economic activity, they strategically park those profits offshore. The wealth is generated locally, but it absolutely does not stay local.
Second, those shifted profits end up as trillions of dollars safely stashed away in tax havens. Trillions. This basically guarantees that the money is permanently removed from the ecosystem. It's never taxed by the developing nation, and it's certainly never reinvested back into the country of origin to build, say, schools, roads, or hospitals.
Third, and this is perhaps the most devastating on a human level, is the brain drain. It's not just cash that's fleeing, it's talent. A developing home country pays the steep societal and financial cost of educating and training its best and brightest workers. But because the global economy is so skewed, those workers understandably leave for better opportunities abroad. That means a wealthier country ultimately reaps all of their economic output. The developing nation is essentially subsidizing the workforce of the developed world. Now, this massive, continuous movement of capital leads us to the final and deeply embedded layer of our explainer.
Part 3.
systemic rules and control.
This entire system is locked firmly into place by three overarching mechanisms. First, currency power. The US dollar serves as the global reserve currency, which gives America a totally unique, built-in economic advantage. Second, international debt. Institutions like the IMF and World Bank provide loans, sure, but they often come attached with really strict, growth-slowing conditions that end up hamstringing developing economies. And third, global trade agreements. The rules of the game are inherently designed by and therefore favor the already developed nations.
When you step back and put all these rules together, you see this system operating in a repeating, unbreakable feedback loop. It starts simply with the historical reality we covered earlier. Rich countries already have the capital. They hold the wealth. Because they have that immense wealth, they then use that massive capital to create and maintain systemic control over those international rules and financial institutions we just discussed. Basically, money buys the ability to set the terms of global trade and debt.
And the inevitable result of all this, that systemic control organically attracts even more capital right back to the wealthy nations, repeating the cycle endlessly. They have the money, they make the rules, and the rules bring them more money. It's an incredibly efficient, self-sustaining loop. But despite this deeply entrenched architecture, the system isn't completely deterministic. It feels unbeatable, for sure. But a few notable outliers prove that escape is actually possible if a country plays its cards exactly right.
Part 4. Breaking the wealth cycle.
If you look at the strategies of successful escapees, nations like South Korea, Singapore, and China, you'll see they broke the cycle through highly strategic, long-term decisions. Instead of just sticking to the traditional path of exporting raw materials, they aggressively shifted toward manufacturing and value addition. Instead of settling for low domestic investment, they poured massive resources into education. And critically, instead of allowing unrestricted capital flight, they implemented strict controls over how capital flowed in and out of their borders. They fundamentally rewired their own local systems to counter the global one. So, looking at all of this, the staggering historical starting lines, the daily reality of modern capital drains, and those self-reinforcing systemic locks, we are forced to confront a difficult reality about how our world actually operates. Smart, strategic decisions by individual nations can clearly break the cycle, but what about the globe as a whole? Considering how deeply embedded this architecture is, can this global wealth gap ever truly be closed, or will it always exist in some form? Keep that question in mind the next time you look at the global economy.